I made a mistake when I was talking about trucks earlier with the Dodge Ram. I got the tow ratings all messed up. This is a Ford F-150, but it doesn't mean 1,500 pounds. That's an old designation that doesn't mean anything anymore. On to the review. It was Eleanor Roosevelt who said one's philosophy is not best expressed in words, it is expressed in the choices one makes, and the choices we make are ultimately our responsibility. So I choose right now to talk about philosophy.
F-150, U96 Ford F-150.
Jacques Derrida coined the term différance, and it's a word that loops back around to the Ford F-150 XL. But first, some specifications. The Ford F-Series was created in the late 1940s, marking the start of an industrious post-war America that was ready to start making frivolous things again, in addition to harvesting corn and spanking it to marine alloy or whatever the hell people did in 1948. There was the F-1, which was a half-ton, there was the F-2, which was a three-quarter-ton, and the F-3, which was heavy-duty. And these models featured sleeker bodies, a roomier cab, and integrated headlights. And when I say integrated headlights, every car has integrated headlights. But in the olden days, headlights were pods that sat outside of the bodywork. Think of like an old Duesenberg or early Studebakers. Now there is a whole tangent I wanted to go off on about the insincerity of calling a base model an XL, extra large, but that's a rant for another time. The mid to late 90s, 1996 in this case, was a transition period for pickup trucks, especially Ford. Before the Clinton administration, trucks were utility and nothing more. Maybe there were some super premium pickup trucks in the 80s with air conditioning and cassette players, ooh. But for the moist pork, pickups were for the workday and your sedan was for the nightlife. It wasn't until Dodge showed us that a pickup truck could be an aspirational, sexy vehicle with the first new Dodge Ram in the 1990s. And all the other manufacturers said, why didn't I think of that? And Ford, GM, Toyota, and to an extent Isuzu retooled their fleet in a half-assed gesture to say, we're with it! See? AOL keyword Sonic 3! Anyway, notice that the hood line doesn't have a bulge in it. Okay, it has a little ridge here in the center, but that's it. That's very 80s, very utilitarian. And there is a straight, unbroken line that runs from the very top of the taillights all the way across the side of the body to the headlight. One long crease. That's old style. But here comes where the retooling happens. Look at this. All of those straight lines are contradicted by the graphics, which swoop up on the sides of the bed. They start low, and when they get to the bed, they swoop up. That's to change the eye line on the car, to try to make it look new, but they're not about to retool the whole line, but if they change the graphics a little bit, we're with it. Look at us. I mean, this is Ford doing what it could to augment how we perceive the truck's physical dimensions. As for the engine, oh boy, here we go. It's the 90s. This is a 5-liter V8 that makes, wait for it, 215 horsepower and 285 pound-feet of torque. And it has 2 throttle bodies. 2. Why? Also,
it's sagged, and if you notice what's right under that is the serpentine belt. And so it sagged onto the serpentine belt while running. It sawed a hole in the radiator hose. That's why you get like sort of all the brown stuff all over here. That's actually spray from coolant. That's really hard to get off, and it's all oxidized from the iron block V8. So it's like brown and smells horrible, but it sawed through there. My temperature was going crazy. I popped the hood and it's just spraying. I had to shut it off.
Oh no. Like crazy without a guard or something
my
like
friend's dad, who's a mechanic who helps me out with a lot of stuff, he said that if you don't like torque this just right, get it twisted so that it lifts up on that point, then it has a tendency to do that. So
weird. Also, why doesn't why don't they just call it a 5-speed? Are they afraid? Look at this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, D. And there's a circle around it. It's supposed to be overdrive. It's a 5th gear that happens to be overdrive. It was a selling point because if your idea of a fun afternoon is going to roadside America, and boy howdy, 4-speed with overdrive sounds a whole lot better than 5-speed. Not to knock roadside. I mean, if you haven't seen that place, look at it. It's the biggest eyeball spectacle I've ever seen since the anime Red Line. Anyway, back to the wheels. If 4-wheel drive is not enough, you can get out of the truck and turn these little knobs on the front hubs. You got to do one on one side, one on the other. I mean, modern four-wheel drive systems, you do this from within the cab, but these you have to get out and do it manually. This means that the wheels will spin at the same speed even when the truck turns. Normally, when you make a turn in any sort of vehicle, your inside wheels are turning slower than your outside wheels because your outside wheels are going a greater distance than your inside wheels. But if you lock them together, that's great for off-road, it's great in the dirt, but if you lock them and you go on pavement, well, that just chews up your tires. Ford tried to dress up the interior within the context of what they thought truck buyers were flocking to the Dodge Ram for, with things like a PowerPoint and sparkly paint and smoker windows. I remember these. Which brings us back to Derrida and différance. Hearing a word doesn't provide a full definition or paint a clear enough picture. And since you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, the word itself shouldn't suffice. But it often does. Because the spoken word is privileged over the written. If the Roman and I wrote a book instead of making these videos, or if we wrote a book in addition to the videos would still have priority to you. Not because of visual stimuli, but because of the power of the spoken word and the potency of context, and a narrator who at times sounds like Adam Scott or Kevin Spacey. Because context is everything.
Now, but not supposed to be riding your four-wheeler on the road.
We can only say the kinds of images that an F-150 brings to mind. The idea of blue-collar America, the rarity of honest men, good men, regular men, who grow in stature the minute they pass away, so that suddenly the 8-inch bass your dad caught up in the Poconos grows another 9.5 inches in the telling. And that's okay, because you miss him. And if he's anything like the image conjured up in our heads, we'd miss him too. Because the world needs honest men, good men, regular men, whose only lies are about the size of their bass or bass.
There's our friend.
There he is again.
Mr. Rebel.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous pickup truck. Ford F-150. Ford F-150, don't act like it now sucks. It used to be everybody's fave. Now men, they just take it to their grave. They're trying